President Donald Trump is facing increasing pushback for accepting a $400 million plane from Qatar. Here he is on his old raggedy plane, Air Force One, responding to some of this criticism.
The plane that you're on right now is almost 40 years old. And when you land and you see Saudi Arabia and you see UAE and you see Qatar and you see all these, and they have these brand new Boeing 747s mostly, and you see ours next to it, this is like a totally different plane. It's much smaller, it's much less impressive as it is. And, you know, we're the United States of America. I believe that we should have the most impressive plane. So anyway, so they said to me, we would like to, in effect, we would like to make a gift. You've done so many things, and we'd like to make a gift to the Defense Department, which is where it's going. And I said, well, that's nice. Now, some people say, oh, you shouldn't accept gifts for the country. My attitude is, why wouldn't I accept a gift? We're giving to everybody else. Why wouldn't I accept a gift? Because it's going to be a couple of years, I think, before the Boeings are finished.
Why wouldn't I accept a gift? This has roused Democratic leadership and a bunch of Republicans to finally get up and offer a little bit of criticism of Trump. Here's both Senate leaders, Schumer and Democratic leaders, the leader of the Senate and leader of the House, Schumer and Jeffries, pushing back. Let's roll those.
News of the Qatari government gifting Donald Trump a $400 million private jet to use as Air Force One is so corrupt that even Putin would give a double take. This is not just naked corruption. It is also a grave national security threat. So in light of the deeply troubling news of a possible Qatari-funded Air Force One and the reports that the Attorney General personally signed off on this clearly unethical deal, I am announcing a hold on all DOJ political nominees until we get more answers.
And Donald Trump is publicly defending accepting a $400 million flying palace from a close ally of Iran and Hamas? I mean, you can't make this stuff up, which is why even some of his closest MAGA sycophants have made clear this is a plane too far.
Close ally of Iran and Hamas. We have a giant military base there. Anyway, here's Ben Shapiro agreeing with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. Let's roll that one.
That's not America first. Like, please define America first in a way that says you should take sacks of cash from the Qatari royals who are behind Al Jazeera. It just isn't America first in any conceivable way. If you want President Trump to succeed, this kind of skeezy stuff needs to stop.
My problem with taking this plane from Qatar is I do not think the President of the United States of America should sit and fly on a plane purchased with the same money used to murder American citizens.
And the most powerful person who's not in the White House in the United States, Laura Loomer, also came out against Trump, put up B3 here, saying, I love President Trump, but this is ridiculous. Come on, get out of here. You can't accept a $400 million gift. And then she dips into her classic Islamophobia.
Rare that Ben Shapiro and Laura Loomer agree on something. So.
And with Schumer and Jeffries as well.
Yes. But I think just quickly, Trump would, to Ben Shapiro, say, oh, it's easy to define this as America first. He just basically did it in the clip that we rolled. He's like, the plane is too small. We're the United States of America, and this makes us have a better relationship with another powerful potential, like, hostile in a potentially hostile area. So he would have no problem answering that question. I think the problem for him at this point is that most people aren't buying his argument.
All right, so joining us more to discuss the implications of all of this is Haaretz journalist Amir Tabon. Amir, thanks so much for joining us. The timing of this, just kind of delightful, just hilarious. Right before he travels first to Riyadh, then to Doha, with a series of historically consequential decisions in front of him. We hear that he's going to be getting this $400 million plane. How is this news being received in Israel?
I'll say two things about it. Number one, you may recall that in February, Prime Minister Netanyahu came to the White House to meet President Trump, and there was a lot of thought in his close circle what they could give him in order to create a good atmosphere and kind of, give him a gift, really, okay? I mean, let's put it in his terms. And eventually they brought Trump a golden beeper, right? Because related to that famous operation in Beirut with all the Hezbollah beepers that blew up. And so they brought him a golden beeper, pretty small. And there was a whole ceremony where Netanyahu gave it to him. I don't think that made much of an impression. I also don't think it was real gold. It was probably gold fill. And then you look at the Qataris, how they're playing the Trump game. They give him a plane. And God knows what's in that plane. And who would be surprised if there are all kinds of other gifts flying with it? So they know what they're doing in terms of appealing to President Trump. And they're better at this game than anyone else, probably. Okay? I mean, they're not giving him something small. And I have to say, about a week before his trip, I was talking about this with a friend from the newspaper, from Haaretz, Chaim Levinson, who writes about diplomatic affairs. And he mentioned to me that he watched a news segment where a Qatari official was talking about the country's deliberations, whether or not to buy new planes from Boeing or from Airbus, right? Basically American or European. And after the Trump plane story came out, he wrote, I feel ashamed of myself as a journalist. I thought the gift that we're going to give Trump is to buy Boeing planes for Qatar. Right. I'm not on their game. I don't even, not even close. They may do that as well, but that's the change. What they're really doing is giving Trump a Qatari plane from Boeing. Yeah. So they know what they're doing. They're good at this. And the other thing I want to say, and putting aside all the just unbelievable nature of it, if it helps end the war in Gaza, I would say Qatar can buy a second plane for Sarah Netanyahu, Bibi's wife. If it brings an agreement to end the war in Gaza, release all the hostages, stop all the suffering and the death, maybe that's what we need right now, because I'm a bit hopeless this morning, I got to tell you. I'm seeing the negotiations happening there in Qatar for ending the war. I don't think it's moving fast enough. So whatever works at this point.
Yeah, and we want you to stick around for an update on those negotiations and where that's going to go. First, let's unpack a little bit more about of this situation, because here in the United States, from my perspective at least, Israel and its backers here in the United States, in Joe Biden, had a fierce ideological supporter, absolutely unapologetic supporter of Israel. Yes, he pressed Netanyahu to allow a couple hundred trucks of aid in every day, and for 3 or 4 days he withheld 2,000-pound bombs after a series of over the top massacres. But otherwise, carte blanche for Israel's war effort, or if you would even call it that at this point. And they fought him and traded him for the most transactional politician the U.S. has had in that office for as long as anybody can really remember. And if you're going to have the most transactional guy in office, like you said, you've got to be on your game. And, gold-plated beepers aren't going to do it. So is there any reflection in Israel about a strategic error, a blindness in throwing out these Democrats who were willing to self-immolate for Israel in exchange for this guy who's can just be outbid?
I'll tell you what, Ryan, I think it's a little too early to reach the conclusion that Trump is actually changing the Biden policy on Gaza. I think you're right that we saw some important arenas in the Middle East recently where he was willing to go against the stated position of the Netanyahu government. We saw it on Syria. Netanyahu appealed to the Trump administration not to lift sanctions on the new Syrian government because of the jihadi past of Ahmed al-Shara, Abu al-Jolani, the new leader of Syria. And Trump ignored Netanyahu's requests and went with the policy that was advocated by Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia and President Erdogan of Turkey, and lifted all the sanctions of Syria, met Ahmed al-Shara in Riyadh, And yes, he asked him to join the Abraham Accords with Israel. And I'm sure the new Syrian president told him we'd be willing to consider it once the war in Gaza is over, okay? Because they're not going to do it while Israeli planes are bombing and killing in Gaza. That's just not going to happen realistically. So on that issue, obviously a disappointment for the Netanyahu government with Trump's policy. On Yemen, I'm sure you've discussed this. The fact that he reached a ceasefire with the Houthis that does not include their continuous attempts to launch missiles toward Israel, including one that landed at Ben Gurion Airport, Israel's only international airport, last week. And almost every day now, you have about 1 million people in Israel running into bomb shelters because of the Houthis, while the American ceasefire stands. On Iran, I think we'll have to wait and see. We don't really know what is the actual content of the negotiations, and what we hear from Stephen Witkoff every week is different, right? One week, it seems closer to the Israeli position. The next week, it seems more detached from it. Wait and see. But on Gaza, I think that's where Netanyahu is playing the fiercest game right now against Trump. And that's where he's being the most really kind of, bare knuckles approach. He's not willing to budge on the American attempts to move toward ending the war and releasing all the hostages in one deal. I call it the end the nightmare deal, okay? End the nightmare that for Israelis, including my family, started on October 7 and has been going on every day since in Gaza and in the region broadly, okay? This is just a nightmare. And if we don't end it soon, it's going to get much worse because right now there are preparations for another military operation in Gaza. And I don't want to think what would happen. This is very personal for me because I have a friend who is held hostage there for 586 days now. Omri Miran was kidnapped by Hamas from my community, Kibbutz Nachal Oz on the border with Gaza. We fear for his life. And we know that President Trump and Witkoff, they want to end the war. We know that, and honestly, guys, Biden wanted to end the war too. Okay, he had his whole, if you remember, in May 2024, almost a year ago, he presented a plan to end the war, but he didn't really use any leverage to actually bring about that result. And right now, I can't say for sure that there is a change on this issue, that Trump is actually going to use the immense leverage that he has to bring about an end to the war. Maybe something will emerge out of this visit right now to Qatar. We are all hoping and praying. We haven't seen it yet.
Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.